Hey, this is Jim, and this is the introductory and welcome video for the CFA Level III video series. We thought it would be a good idea for me to kind of introduce myself, tell you about my background, tell you how I teach in these videos and what you can expect to learn from the recordings. We also thought it would be helpful to give you a sense of the differences between level 3 exam and levels 1 and 2. And then we'll end with just a short example of questions that you might get on the level 3 exam. So there's my official name up there. Some people call me James. I usually go by Jim, but my name is James Forjan. I do have a PhD in finance going way back to 1993. And all those individuals who earn PhDs in business have to pick a minor. So I picked economics, which led me into 2 PhD level courses in econometrics. I also have my undergraduate degree is in accounting. And so if you think about that, I'm covered from my educational experience for almost all of the topics inside of the CFA program. I do hold the CFA designation. I went through the program back in the early 2000s. Since then, I've taught tons and tons of courses. This semester, I'm teaching the undergraduate investments class. In the spring, I teach my favorite class, derivative securities. But usually, every semester, I teach a corporate finance class. It's been a while since I've taught stats and accounting, but I can do all that stuff as well. In my quiet time, I've served on many not-for-profit budget committees and finance councils and investment committees. I've sat in on meetings where professionals come in and are super happy to tell me about duration and beta and all that kind of stuff. So I've been in those meetings where wealth managers are trying to be super impressive. I got my undergraduate degree in '84, my master's in '85, and then I've taught at a bunch of places. But what I've been doing since I have passed the 3 exams is for a multitude of service providers. I've done item sets, I've done multiple choice questions, I've created study guides, I've done all sorts of stuff. So what do those words say? Crafted, edited, updated, and upgraded. Boy, that sounds super impressive for all the work that I have done. So here's my experience. There's my education. There's my work experience. And so let me give you a sense of what you'll see in these videos. Let me start by saying to you that this is not a review course. I am a pure academic. And so when I read an LOS, I go ahead and say, all right, let's decide what is the LOS actually requiring in terms of knowledge, and then what are the potential exam questions. Because remember, and I learned this very early on in, whatever that year was, 2000 or 2001 when I started in the program, that every LOS is a potential exam question. So as an academic, I took that to my heart. And so when I was studying, I studied all those LOSs and I tried to figure out what kind of questions can be asked with each LOS. And granted, some LOSs, you look at them and you think, there's no possible way that a reasonable question can show up on the exam. But this is what I've learned over the years, that those questions that might not have be directly the result of a question that shows up on the exam, what they do is they lead to more and better and more rigorous questions. So you need to know all of the LOSs. So what I do before I make these videos is I take a look at the reading. And remember, the CFA Institute is calling these readings and modules now. So I look at these things and I look at the LOSs and I try to go through the module and decide what is the most important part of the paragraphs as it relates to the LOS. And then we try to craft a slide deck to reflect those kinds of things. Remember, we're not claiming that we're perfect. We're not even claiming that we're complete. But what we're suggesting is that if you do all the work, which means watch my videos and practice on the problems and do the mock exams, that, boy, you ought to be prepared for that exam. So let me repeat this, that this is not a review recording, and you will not get a review from me. You will get an educational experience. I'll work through the LOSs, and I tell lots of stories. I try to keep them short so that we don't get off track. I tell silly stories, I tell crazy stories, I use analogies, but my motivation is to get you to retain something that you listened to and watched on a recording, so that when you get to this point of the exam and there's a question on, let's just pick a topic like a put option, and you think to yourself, wait a minute, didn't Jim, he told us something silly about a put option, what was that? And then the answer presents itself right on the exam. So that's kind of my goal. This is the way I teach my classes in college, and we have a fun time in class. And hopefully these will be fun videos to watch and you won't dread them. Some of them are long, so when you pull up a recording and it says, 58 minutes, I don't want you to shrug your shoulders and say, oh, there's no way I'm listening to Jim for 55 minutes. Because I promise you there's stuff in there. There's always good nuggets to help you on the exam. So let's just quickly go back to level 1. So what did you have? You remember 180 multiple choice questions, and these were all independent. So you had a bunch of questions in the morning, a bunch of questions in the afternoon. Look at that third gray box, covers a straightforward introduction. So this is what I told you guys if you watched my level 1 videos, is that there's tremendous breadth in level 1. You got to go way out, right? Quantitative analysis, financial statement analysis, a little bit of alternatives, a little bit of derivatives, a little bit of the policy statement. All right. So, what you can do is you can probably spend, I can't remember what my life was like when I was taking that level 1 exam, but I remember thinking I ought to work through these a minute at a time. I think what we're saying now is maybe 1 to 2 minutes. I think on average, 90 seconds for each question. 3 unique choices. Back in the old days, it was 4 choices. I always threaten my students. I say, I'm going to give you a multiple choice exam with 11 multiple choices. And they just shake their head and they say, Jim, we know you're not going to do that. Level 2 then, so what we're doing is we're squeezing a little bit in the breadth, but we're clearly going into deeper material. And that is evidenced by lots of conversations that I've had with candidates over the years. And I'll give you just a quick example that, remember in level 2, when we tried to price a callable bond, we put together an interest rate tree. And I've had candidates over the years, and even I was tempted to do this at some point when I was studying, to say, you know what, this is going to take me, I'm going to pick a number, 3 hours to figure this out. And I don't have time to do it, nor do I want to. So if I get a callable bond interest rate tree question on the exam, I'm just going to pick B and move on with my life. I'm going to encourage you not to take that approach. Everything in the CFA program is doable, and it's my job to get you through and to be able to give you confidence that you can work on these problems successfully. All right, so you remember that you had, these 2 equal sessions, just like you did, optional break in between the 2 sessions, 11 item sets. So now you're introduced to this concept of, instead of one question stem with maybe 2 or 3 sentences in it, now we have several paragraphs in this vignette. And then you had a bunch of questions after the vignette. Maybe there were 4, maybe there were 6 questions. But each of those questions then related back into the vignette. Well, what we do in level 3 is we take it one step further. We have these things called item sets, which you'll have 6 of these, and then you'll have these things called a constructed response or an essay. So similar to level 2, but yet different. I think I remember reading that the CFA Institute now has the authority to ask you any number of multiple choice questions in these item sets, but I think they've settled on 4. So look at that third block down there. Previously, first session contained only the essays. Second was the item sets. Now, there might be a combination of those 2. And so you think about this. I like to give lots of sports examples. So here you are, let's pick a great quarterback these days, Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, and they come up to the line of scrimmage. They don't know what the defense is. So that's what you're doing. You have a play called, so you have your toolbox ready. You have to worry about if it's a zone defense or man-to-man defense, if they're going to blitz, if they're going to stay back. Those of you who know football will know exactly what I'm talking about. Those of you who are not football fans, you can think of this in almost any sport, that you just don't know what you're going to get when you have the ball thrown at you to start a play. So this is how you guys have to be prepared for your exam. All right, so this is just a summary of what I have been saying here. 44 multiple choice items, each worth 3 points. There's the vignette followed by 4 multiple choice questions. I think they've settled on 4, but they could ask you 100 different questions on a vignette. But I will say this: in my years of crafting these item sets, and let's suppose that I'm crafting one with 4 multiple choice questions. So what I would do is I would just come up with an idea, like here's a couple, whatever this couple, maybe they're married, maybe they live together, but they own a house together, maybe they have children, maybe they have parents, so I give some background information in the first paragraph. And then I'll go and find 4 LOSs that I like. And I'll say something in question. The next paragraph will relate to a specific LOS, then another LOS, then another LOS, and then those 4 questions would just follow. Now, I'm guessing the Institute would kind of mix and match those paragraphs up above. It wouldn't be just, 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. But remember that you're still going to have to read and comprehend the entire vignette. And the same thing with the essay questions. This will probably be constructed a little bit differently. You'll have a paragraph, and then it'll say something like, oh, here's my favorite word. And I probably never even used this word before I went through the program, but I do it now on my undergraduate exams. Justify your response. There's a lot of justify in here. So think about all of the LOS action words that we're going to be faced with in level 3, and they're the same that they were in level 1 and 2. Probably not too much identify, but explain and describe and compute and demonstrate. So you're going to have to do all that stuff. So you do one of those, and then the follow-up question is justify your response with, maybe 1 reason, probably not 10 reasons. That sounds like too much. But anyway, you get the sense that level 3 is almost entirely an application exam. Back in level 1, you might have gotten a question that sounded something like, okay, here's a client. The client has $100 today. Interest rate is 10%. They're going to invest for 1 year. How much will they have at the end of the year 1? Well, the answer is 110. I promise you're not going to get a question like that on level 3. If you do, you ought to jump up and down and high-five each other. But these are going to be in level 3. So what are we doing? We're still holding true to that breadth, but now we're getting deeper and deeper. And this is what I'll say to you in those level 3 recordings is that, and this is what I learned, that the big difference between level 1 and level 2 and then level 3 is the focus on the policy statement. Of course, there's lots of breadth. There's derivatives, there's alternative investments, there's, efficiency, there's all this kind of stuff. But many of the questions are going to be tied into the policy statement. So you're probably going to have to relate all of these topics to things like the risk objective and the return objective and the 5 constraints. All that stuff is summarized in that policy statement. So think globally as you're preparing for the exam. Every LOS, ask yourself, what does this have to do with the policy statement? Optional break. I know when I took it, I actually, drove to a nearby city, and in the lunchtime, I went out, sat in my car, and there were lots of people out that were doing the same thing, and they were going over their index cards and trying to study, and I closed my eyes and tried to prevent getting a migraine before I went back in there. I mean, this is not easy stuff, but I promise you once again that you can do this. All right, comments. So what? Level 3 is broader, right? More subjective, relative to the other levels. So you're going to have somebody who reads your essay. So make sure that you print clearly. Take your time. Make sure that the grader can read the word. If you put the word like put option, maybe they can read put option. Draw a graph. Do all those kinds of things. So let's go ahead and just take a quick example here. I'm not going to go through the answers here, but here's a very short kind of a question stem. We have a dude who lives in Boston. He has an expensive condo, has a portfolio of tech stocks worth 1.9 million. So this is what you should be thinking as you read those paragraphs. So expensive condo, tech stocks. So clearly this is not a diversified portfolio. And since we're in the topic of behavioral finance, you got to start thinking, okay, why do we not have a diversified portfolio? Maybe we suffer from confirmation bias. Maybe we have mental accounting. Maybe we have overconfidence. Never used professional financial advice. So that tells you that this dude probably thinks very highly of himself. He doesn't need our help, right? Dollar cost averaging, that probably has some implications. Debit of 80% of his salary, which goes directly into an exchange traded fund at his favorite online broker. All right, he graduated from MIT, so this is a smart person, right? High paying job, algorithmic software, right? Hedge fund, so we get all that. This is a smart guy who probably thinks that he knows lots more than we do. But then look at that last sentence. All right, so he's writing a book and he's getting an advance. He's going to place the entire sum into cryptocurrencies. Oh my goodness gracious. So as a good wealth manager, you should grab your head and hope that you don't get a migraine by reading through this. But clearly there are behavioral biases in there. So let's go ahead and read the question. State the behavioral bias most likely exhibited by Vincent. All right, now this is important, based solely on his cryptocurrency investment idea. So we need to go back and just read that last sentence to remind ourselves exactly what he's doing with the cryptocurrencies. But in order to answer this question fully, we needed to process everything in those first 5 or 6 sentences there. Now look at the box down below. The candidate is expected to type 2 answers in the response box. The behavioral bias and the reason for that particular bias, or maybe the consequence of that particular bias, or whatever it is. So make sure that you fully and completely answer directly the question that was asked. How about example 2? State the behavioral bias exhibited based solely on the vacation, home purchase, and related decisions. Okay, well, emotional, cognitive, confirmation bias. Explain why those 2 biases are less appropriate. So let's figure out which one it is. Let's tell us why they're not appropriate. And so look at the purple box. 3 answers. Name of the bias, the reason the 2 not selected are appropriate, and why it's not appropriate. How about this one? Mental accounting and loss aversion. Here's our note. Each discussion should be in a different paragraph. So discussion of mental accounting and a discussion of loss aversion. By the way, when you get to the loss aversion recording, I'm going to go ahead and give you the Tom Brady example. I'm going to do it right now just to give you a sense of this. So here we go. Tom Brady football. Here's one of my, I think this is a good analogy. Tom Brady was asked after he won whatever Super Bowl that was, a reporter said, "Hey, Tom, does this make up for the loss to the Giants in the previous Super Bowl?" And Tom Brady said, "Are you kidding me? I wake up every night agonizing over that loss to the Giants." And he says, so loss aversion means that, boy, that loss in that Super Bowl was so painful that a subsequent Super Bowl win didn't make up for it. So think about that, what that means for us on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange if we have a loss aversion. Boy, if we're going to try to avoid losses, we are not going to be thinking clearly in the manner of Eugene Fama. So that takes us to the end of this relatively short introduction. So this is my suggestion. As you watch my videos, take notes. I will ask you to get your camera out and take a picture of some of the slides. So put a folder in your camera with, Jim's slides. And by the end of all of the recordings, you might have 30 or 40 pictures in there. And then when you're riding on the train or you're just sitting by yourself, you can go through those and scroll through those to make sure that you're prepared. Here's my last piece of advice, but I'll repeat this in some of these recordings, is that, and maybe you know this from level 2, maybe not so much in level 1, you really need to be consumed by this as much as you possibly can with your professional and your personal life. Remember, what you're trying to do is you're trying to join a club. You're trying to join a club made up of all of these charter holders, right? And there's not too many of us out there in the world. And you're trying to join this exclusive club, so you have to pay a price. And that price is listening to me over the next couple of months. But it's still making this a priority in your life, however you fit it in with your professional and personal life. So I promise you that I will have fun making these videos, and perhaps even if they're not fun for you to watch, that they will be helpful in gaining your wisdom and knowledge and understanding to succeed on the exam. So thanks for watching, and good luck studying.